ask you about the new album, which you said is a reconciliation of your relationship with the church.
Yes.
What was it before? What is it after? I'm very interested in your view on God and spirituality and faith.
Yeah, man. That's why I hate this podcast. It's like, we'll laugh, but tell us something about God. It's like, that's a good subject to get me in trouble. Dude, it's like, when I was 14, do I have time to tell this full story? Because I want to share it in like its detail. If you
Hell
don't
yeah.
mind. My daughter is just turned 15, okay? Last year, she started going to this little church back in this little country road, a little bitty church. In fact, it's a church that takes place in a school auditorium, and the school is kindergarten through 12th grade, right? Little bitty church, little country church. 20 of the 100 members are kids from her high school. And I was like, this is last summer, and I'm like, when I was 14, the summer of that summer was the last year that I ever attended a church. I got baptized that same summer and caught my first robbery case that same summer.
Wow.
So all these feelings are coming back up in me as she's like pounding me, because you know what people do when they find a church. You know, gotta come, you gotta come. It's like what they do, and I think that's cool. So I was like, I should go. So I go, because I'm a father. You know what I mean? You support your kid. And like I tell people, if the kid wanted to play fucking cricket, I'd have learned about cricket.
It's a great game.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm in. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would have read a book on soccer for dummies if the kid wanted to play soccer. So I'm like, I'm going to church. And when I show up, I'm like, it was the first time in a long time that I wasn't mad at the church. You know, because like there's just so much room for error, and that whole belief system. I don't want to get too deep into that because I'll get in trouble, but it's just weird. And I was just in there like, and I grew up a Christian kid. I got a cross on my face. You know what I mean? But I was like, I started looking at it from the people, not the preacher. And I was like, why are they here? And that changed my perspective of the church that afternoon. I was like, man, these people's intention is pure, at least in this little building. They're coming in here trying to cleanse something. They're trying to be better people. They're trying to set an example for their children, core principles of life, moral compasses. Like, they're not in here to create. This is like truly a safe space for these people. Like, this is like, and it made me think about, why did I go to church when I was that age? What drew me to the church? And it was all my friends went. Why did I get baptized? And what led me to, and then of course I spent 10 years after that in jail reading nothing but religious material. I mean, I read about everything you can. I didn't get my GED till I was in my mid-20s in jail. I'm a completely uneducated man. If you had to ask me what grade I completed, I'd say like 7th, I think was the last grade I actually like graduated to the next grade. You know what I mean? So I'm talking to Bailey about all this stuff, and when we leave that church that next day, I'm like, yo, you won't believe this, kid, but I used to go to a little church like this, and I got baptized when I was your age, and I had a bunch of homies, and I went on to, could have went one of two ways in life, and I went the wild route, so, and she kind of didn't believe me, and I was like, no, I'm telling you, dude, it's like the same church. It was called Whitsett Chapel Baptist Church. It was on this little country road in the back ass of Antioch, between Antioch and Donaldson, sat across from the lake. Finally, one day I'd take her. I'm like, I bet the building's still there. Bro, I pulled up, the building hasn't changed at all. Wow. Like, I think they added a carport that I didn't put on the album cover. Like, literally a carport, you know, like for some sweet old lady that, like, it's a 100-person church. And when I left there, I had wrote probably 100 songs at that point towards my debut country album. And I realized that I wasn't writing in the spirit that I like to write in. I was looking for a hit. I just came off a couple of hits, like real hits, like life-changing hits, and I was looking for a hit. And when I was driving that day, I was kind of praying, because I'm a man of prayer, and I was like, I called my producer, and I was like, I want to start from scratch on this album. And I had a song called Going to Church, and a song called Hungover in a Church Pew that I wrote through all those songs. And I was like, what if we make that the first song and the last song, and we tell a story? Book open, book close. And we tell the story of this album, and we call it Going to Church. And he was like, what's the name of that church you went to? I was like, Whitsett Chapel. He said, we need to call it Whitsett Chapel, and you need to write that album. And I wrote a concept album. Like, I scrapped all these songs. The record label's calling, like, mad at first. They're like, yo, we'd already picked out singles. We'd sent this to radio. Like, you got some hits. And I was like, give them to whoever wants them, man. I can't sing them with conviction. Oh, wow. You know what I mean? I was like, this is the album. And they, you know, I'm in creative control, and they love me. And they were like, we trust you. Sight unheard. I just turned the album in, and they listened. And the head of the label, Jonathan Loba, who changed my whole life, I love you, Loba, calls me and he's like in tears. He's like, yo, this is like, he's like, I'll never forget him saying this because I hope he's right. He said, you're going to get nominated for a Grammy for this album.
Wow.
He was like, this is special. This is like the president of BMG. He's like, this is so the right thing to do, and nobody questioned it. And it was like, my reconciliation came from like, I still think what the church is doing, to answer your question directly, I still think what they're doing is wrong, but I think that the spirit of which people go to these churches is more, and I try to judge things based on intent. And I never seen the intent like I did watching my daughter and them go to that church.
Can I ask, you don't have to put it in if you don't, what do you think is wrong about the church?
Well, you can put this in. I just think that they're, you know, I think that you can't pander to people that to think that we're all stupid enough not to be free thinkers. Mm-hmm. And I hate that this like Jesus and the church is going to die again. Jesus is going to die all over again if they don't find a way to portray him the way he was historically known to be. Not the version of which y'all let Constantine and all these people come together and figure this out under the Constantine. I read the Constantine Sword book about how this all came together. It's like, when you look in that stuff, it's like, if you look at the history facts of Jesus, which I think favor Christianity in this weird way, when you look at those, that dude is not the dude y'all have turned him into. Like, y'all have Americanized Jesus and used him as a way of not only propaganda, but you've weaponized God. You have weaponized God. You know what I mean? And it's like, that was the opposite of who Jesus was. The same people that you are like criticizing and going against are the only people that Jesus had a relationship with in the Bible. You know what the first miracle was in the Bible? Pop quiz. The first miracle talked about in the whole Bible. No. He turned water into wine for his mother at a wedding reception. Mm-hmm. If we judge that alone, regardless of how you feel about Jesus, if you believe in it or not, to the side, his mother comes up to him. So she knows he can do crazy shit, right? Because she walks up like, yo, I need a favor, right? Imagine this, right? You know, and Jesus was like, and he calls her woman. He goes, what, woman? In the Bible. Shows me he's a little bit sassy.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? And she goes, in so many words, I need a party trick here.
Yeah.
Like fucking, this is like a really whack party. Like,
she only talks to God when she needs a favor.
Yeah, she only talks to God when she needs a favor.
Yeah.
Right? She's like, yo, can you like do something about this? He says it's not my time, which leads me to believe that she's probably seen him resurrect a squirrel or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? She knows he can do something. And she hits him with the please. And just like any other good son who loves his mom, turns water into wine. You're telling me this dude gives a fuck about gay people? Like, you're telling me that's what his focus was in life at that era? Like, that's something he'd be concerned with in this era of life? This dude fucking, first thing he did was a party favor. Yeah. And then if you look at his history, he did nothing but protect town whores, prostitutes, people in jail. Like the famous story of the throwing stones, let he who without sin cast his first stone. He was protecting a prostitute. Pharisees come into the temple at one point and they ask him about an adulterer, dude having an affair, right? And that's when he does he said, in so many words, and the Christians get so mad when I fuck y'all anyways. And he's like, so many words, he's like, hey man, what about this girl over here? She's cheating on her husband. He goes, y'all ain't never fucked around on your girl? Literally, that's what he says in the Jesus way. It's like, you ain't never cheated on your bitch? Ever? And these dudes are like, well, he's like, then shut the fuck up. He never looked up from the dirt. It says in the scripture that he was drawing in the dirt. Doodling is what that relays down to. He was just fucking around in the dirt with a stick. Never even looked up at the Pharisees. He was just like, y'all motherfuckers, come on, dude, you're cheating on your girl too. Leave that girl alone. It's crazy. But then somebody like my wife's the first person I watch those kind of Christian women persecute. It's like, man, that's the opposite of what that dude was doing. So that's my problem with the church. It's like, even if we just go by the 4 books that y'all call the only 4 accounts of him, this dude ran around with 12 thugs. If he was here today, he'd be on a fucking Harley. He'd be going to a bar. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'll give you another one. You ready for this? He flipped a table over in the temple. You remember this story? And he said, don't make a merchant of my father's house. Yet every mega church in America sells CDs and books and fucking coffee.
Yeah.
There's Starbucks in these places. It's like they're so picky and choosy.
Yeah.
The church is so like, well, hold on. It fits our agenda to really nail in on this one thing that was said in Leviticus. Right? But we're going to, it's like, I thought we were focused on Jesus anyways. If that's like the focal point here, I'm sorry I went on that.
No, well, the reason I was asking you is if this is a weird comparison, but it feels like when you talk to God in your songs, it reminds me of DMX. When DMX would talk to God in his songs.
Right.
And maybe this is me projecting, but there's like a, I don't know if I'm worthy. Feeling I get from listening to it. Maybe that's me again projecting my own shit. But I was curious listening to this and listening to Save Me and Only Talk to God When I Need Favor. Like, what is your relationship with God? Yeah. And I don't know if that's why it affects me so deeply. Maybe I feel that deep down.
Right.
But I've listened to DMX as a kid. Same thing I feel now. Like I feel moved. Like, man, I feel that way.
Yeah. What's like to me? It's more of a I call it a sinner's prayer is what I'm doing. My music is just coming to terms with like. As a part of my recovery from the stuff that was killing me, which I don't talk about my recovery much because the recovering purists would say that I'm not sober and I shouldn't talk about it. And I respect those people so much.
Right.
The people that really almost like they can't live that way. But it's like, for me, how I had to get off the codeine that was going to kill me. Like codeine was going to kill me for sure. It took like me understanding the need for a higher power.
Yep.
Like for me personally, and I know it's not for everybody, but I needed to believe that there was something, because Jason, if he's solely in charge, I'm fucked. I'm in a lot of trouble here. He's in a dark spot up here, man. That dude's get really, really sad. But it's like believing in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then looking at these people and being like, yo, do we not like, if what y'all are saying is God, what I'm reading feels a little different than like my prayer to God is like, yo, if you're who they say you are, is there a spot for motherfuckers like us with you or no? Because these people are sure making me feel like we're not, you know what I mean?
You
it's
felt
like,
rejected by it.
Yeah, it's like, so it's like, talk to me, God. Like, are we cool?
Yeah.
You know what's up with me.
Yeah.
Like, you know my heart, but also the Bible also says that there will be plenty of people that he'll tell them, you think you know me, but you don't. And there'll be people that, you know what I mean? It's like, so I always joke that a lot of these pastors going to end up in hell, and I'm going to have a big old mansion with a smoking section up there. You know what I'm saying? But I'll be the one with an open bar in that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? I think God going to do something big for me.
I think that humans have a notoriously horrible relationship with power. And when you put people in power, usually shitty things happen, or the worst part of them comes out.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times religion is used for nefarious intent. And that doesn't mean that the ideals behind it or the intent that you were talking about, what those people are seeking in it, that salvation, that humility, that inspiration.
Right.
Like, wow, what if I could be just 10% more like that Jesus guy?
Right.
What if I could be 15% more? I don't got to be him, but if I could just increase my kindness a little bit, if I could judge my neighbor a little bit less, and I think every time I've been in a church and I've felt that from the people in there, it was beautiful. It oftentimes wasn't necessarily what the pastor was saying, but it was the people submitting themselves that I found so profound. And I find that even when I go to concerts, as silly as that is, like seeing someone submit themselves to someone else who makes them feel fantastic or feel sad.
Oh, yeah.
Or feel anything.
Right.
So I understand your feeling about it. And maybe if you had a talk with a pastor, he might be like, yo, you onto something, bro.
Yeah. A few of them.
They might be frustrated with the same things you're frustrated with.
Man, I'm telling you, I've had more pastors reach out since Whitsett Chapel and just speak out and go, hey, man, you might not, some of these Christian people might be against your message right now, but I think more people are hearing about God through your music than people have heard about God in a long time. And he's like, and I think you're talking to people about God who otherwise would have never heard about him at all. So them hearing about him in any way is kind of...
Because they might feel immediately rejected, kind of like how you felt.
For sure. You just automatically feel like, yeah, I don't fit that mold for that particular thing, you know? And the problem I do have, as you say that, is that the people that are like, Jesus is the only way, I get that. Like, he's the way, the light. I understand the scripture, but... like, you just can't take away my free thought here. Like, you just can't lead me to believe. Like, Jesus is a piece of this puzzle. I had a lot of work I need to do. You know what I mean?